From fat-free cookies in the 90s to today's keto craze, have you ever wondered why the science behind fat is so confusing? In this video, I'm uncovering decades of fat myth and revealing what you actually need to know to stay healthy. For decades, we've been told fats are the enemy, responsible for heart disease, obesity, and more. If you think about the advice we've heard, it's been all over the place. First, there was that low-fat craze where everything from yogurt to cookies was labeled fat-free. Then came the resurgence of butter and high-fat diets like keto. But what if I told you the science behind fats was never that simple? What if fats, yes, even butter and oils, could be the key to better health? Today, I'm going to take you through the evolution of fat science, from the low-fat mania of the 80s and 90s to the rise of healthy fats. We'll cover why fats were misunderstood and what the latest research says about which fats are good for you, which to avoid, and how they impact your body. By end of this video, you'll understand the real truth about fats, and trust me, it's not like what you've been told. Let's go back to the 1950s when everything started with a scientist named Ansel Keys. His 7-country study linked high saturated fat diets to heart disease, particularly in places like the US and Finland. This study laid the groundwork for the lipid hypothesis, suggesting that eating fats, especially saturated fats, would raise cholesterol and lead to heart disease. And this is probably something you've heard about it before too. What we now know is that Keys' study had its own flaws. Later analysis revealed that it left out key data from countries where people consume high-fat diets but had low rates of heart disease, such as France. This gave rise to what's known as the French paradox, where people consume saturated fats yet have relatively low heart disease rates. And as a result, a massive shift in nutrition guidelines occurred, steering people away from fats, especially saturated fats, and towards carbohydrates. However, there's a twist to this story that most of us missed. In 1977, the US Senate's dietary goals for the United States, led by Senator George McGovern, he recommended that Americans reduce fat consumption, particularly saturated fats, to combat rising heart disease rates. This led to the first dietary guidelines for Americans being published, promoting low-fat diets. So food companies responded by producing low-fat versions of products like yogurt, salad dressings, and snacks. For example, cereal brands like Kellogg marketed low-fat, high-carb products as heart-healthy, alternatives to traditional breakfasts like bacon and eggs. The guidelines also contributed to the promotion of high-carb, low-fat diets. However, these guidelines didn't make distinctions between types of fats, lumping all fats, good and bad, into the same category. The 80s and 90s were peak low-fat mania. Companies started to producing everything from fat-free cookies to fat-free yogurts. Remember Snackwell's Devil's Food Cake? These treats were marketed as guilt-free because they had no fat. But in reality, they were packed with sugar. Food companies replaced fats with sugar and refined carbohydrates to make these products taste better, which led to unintended consequences of rising obesity and diabetes rates. This phenomenon highlights what's often referred to as the Snackwell effect, where people believed low-fat products were healthier but ended up consuming more sugars and calories instead. Ironically, as people cut out fats, obesity and diabetes rates surged. Why? Because when you remove fat, you have to replace it with something like usually sugar. This is where the narrative about fat being the villain began to fall apart. During this time, low-fat and fat-free products became dietary staples. Snackwell's cookies, for example, became an iconic brand in the 1990s, marketed as a low-fat but indulgent. However, these products were often filled with sugar to compensate for the lack of fat, ironically contributing to rising rates of obesity and diabetes. Okay, let's talk about science. Not all fats are created equal. Today, we know that some fats are actually good for you. Here's what you need to know about the different types of fats. In fact, studies show that replacing saturated fats with refined carbs didn't reduce heart disease risk as expected. Instead, it may have increased the risk for metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes. First, let's discuss unsaturated fats, the good guys found in foods like olive oil, avocados, and nuts. These fats are heart healthy. They help lower LDL, the bad cholesterol, and raise HDL, the good cholesterol. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish and walnuts are particularly important for brain health and reducing inflammation. Recent studies show that omega-3s, especially from marine sources, can lower the risk of chronic diseases, including heart disease and cognitive decline. Moreover, these fats have been linked to lower levels of systemic inflammation, which is a significant contributor to many modern diseases. Now, let's move to saturated fats, which have been so misunderstood. Found in foods like butter and red meat, saturated fats were once demonized, and they still are. However, new research shows that their effect isn't the same for everyone. For example, people on keto diets have successfully lost weight and improved metabolic health while eating more saturated fats. The takeaway: moderation is key, not elimination. It is crucial to understand not all saturated fats are created equal either. For instance, medium-chain triglycerides (MCTs) found in coconut oil are metabolized differently than long-chain fats found in red meat, and they may provide unique benefits like boosting energy and promoting fat loss. Okay, lastly, there's trans fats, which are the true villains. Found in processed and fried foods, trans fats raise bad cholesterol while lowering good cholesterol. Thankfully, they've been banned in most places, but it is crucial to check your labels, and I meant nutrition labels. In 2015, the FDA banned artificial trans fats from food products, recognizing their detrimental effect on heart health. However, small amounts still can be found in processed foods, so it is really important to read your labels and avoid everything containing partially hydrogenated oil. Cholesterol was once public enemy number one. But in 2024, the role of dietary cholesterol in heart disease is seen as less straightforward than it once was. Research suggests that for most people, cholesterol in foods like eggs or shrimp doesn't significantly raise blood cholesterol. Instead, high levels of LDL cholesterol, often driven by unhealthy fats and sugars, and systematic inflammation are more concerning risk factors for heart disease. Moreover, newer studies have shown that it's the size and density of LDL particles that matter most. Small, dense LDL particles are more likely to contribute to arthritis than large, fluffy LDL particles. And guess what? Diets high in processed sugars are often the reason behind the formation of these harmful particles. The sugar, not fat. So these harmful particles are often a result of diets high in sugar and unhealthy fats. So cutting out processed foods and focusing on whole foods is a much better strategy. Diets like keto and low-carb, high-fat diets, those continue to show promise for weight loss, controlling blood sugar, especially people with diabetes, and improving heart health markers in certain individuals. However, these diets are not for everyone, but in general, it is good to avoid sugar. Studies have shown that keto diets can lead to significant improvements in weight management and blood sugar control. And I've lost a lot of weight doing keto as well, especially cutting out the sugary desserts. Your brain loves fat. Omega-3s found in fatty fish are critical for brain function and reducing the risk of cognitive decline as we age. There's even a research suggesting that omega-3s can help with mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. So imagine what would happen if you keep eliminating fats. Numerous studies show that omega-3 supplements, especially EPA and DH, improve cognitive function and may slow down progression of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. If there's one thing we all can agree on, it's this. Refined sugars and processed carbs are the real villains. These foods spike your blood sugar, trigger insulin resistance, and contribute to weight gain, heart disease, and even mental health problems. Excess sugar intake has been strongly linked to the development of insulin resistance, obesity, and other metabolic conditions. Research suggests that the overconsumption of these processed carbohydrates is what's driving the current obesity epidemic. In conclusion, fats are not the enemy. Refined sugars and processed carbs are. Fats play a critical role in overall health. Unsaturated fats are beneficial, while saturated fats in moderation are not as harmful as once we thought. And trans fats, avoid them like the plague. As always, the key is balance. Choose a whole and unprocessed foods whenever possible, and your body will thank you. And for me, thank you for watching this video. If you liked my video or if you have any question, leave me a comment below. I'll get back to you. So I'll see you next time. And by the way, if you're curious about this makeup look, I'll put down the link in the description. So anyway, I love you all. Bye.